Hello and welcome to the Blood and Pigment channel. I'm Joseph and I'm here with Guy. We've been looking through Raise the Black, the most recent expansion for Blood and Plunder, and we've been walking through chapter by chapter, looking at what it brings new to each nation. What are we looking at today, Guy?
We're looking at the French chapter today. Raise the Black brings Blood and Plunder into the 18th century, and France gets some new toys to play with. How is France different in Raise the Black compared to how they play in the core rulebook and No Peace Beyond the Line, Dan?
Well, the French of the 17th century were touted as the sharpshooting buccaneers who often core the line between pirate and privateer. They were the best shooting army in the game and featured a unit with the lowest shoot score, the Buccaneers. They balance good shooting with great melee units, and this has carried over into Raise the Black. They typically have an average resolve and below average saves, but they still excel at shooting, and they get lots of new toys, like you mentioned, new units, new commanders, new factions. It's awesome.
Overpowered French! Okay, got that out of the way.
They're very middle of the road, this book, though. They are good at things and they're not the best at other things. It's not the Fleabouze problem from No Peace Beyond the Line in the core rulebook, where Fleabouzes were just good at everything. They were good at melee, good at shooting, everything.
Yeah, they aren't as extreme in this book. They retain a lot of the same flavor where they have specialized units that are really good at certain things and bad at other things. So they have really strong tools for each thing in the game, and then their faction just have to balance that so they can do whatever they need to in the game. So we'll walk through and look at the various factions real quick.
Starting with, what's the first one, Joseph?
Well, the French army. Raise the Black introduces a army faction for most of the major European powers, where you get some actual regular soldiers brought over from Europe rather than just militia or scum of the earth soldiers. Fun force, high cost unit, so it's usually going to be smaller, but well disciplined, good weaponry. You have the socket bayonet, which is a big upgrade that lets you keep that bayonet on while you shoot. Pretty deadly, really good for defensive musket lines where you can shoot and then drive off a charge if they're coming at you. The force building is not the most interesting because to make good use of the kind of platoon action rules, you need to use mostly the professional soldiers. But the French army has an advantage over the others in that if you want some interesting support units, there's a lot of fun options. And there's a Canadian version of the army too. And some good commanders for that. But it's your basic army faction where you can kind of all move as one big group if you want, or all shoot all at the same time. Fun, but pretty small force. And I love the soldier models that come in this set. The plastic soldiers are real easy to put together and look great.
Yeah, they have a lot of good options too with them. The Grenadier hats, and you can give them tricorns finally. And they don't have as many poses and options as the sailor kit, but you're going to give them all muskets and bayonets anyway. So your work is done for you.
Doesn't take as long.
Yeah. Well, we should move on to the next one, which is in the book. It's the French Raiders, but I want to talk about the French Caribbean Militia first. The French Caribbean Militia is a lot like the old French Caribbean Militia, but you do not get Fleabouzes this time. You get you still have Marcel Caribes or Milician as your core units, but you also get the later Fleabouzes, which are like regular Fleabouzes, but they've been depowered a little bit. They're cheaper, so you can get more of them, but their resolve is hurt, and they don't have all of the musket special abilities that they used to. They really lose a lot of that ability. Like they don't have bow and shot anymore. They do not have fast reload anymore. They do have sailors, and that's it. But they have more options. You can even take away their musket if you wanted a nice 4-point boarding party with brace of pistols.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. You also get a lot of different support options in the French Caribbean Militia that you can still have Marcel Cheval, which is their cavalry. You can have the artillerymen this time, Steel Buccaneers and Bucaneri, along with the new Marines Basque as a support unit. This is going to be really familiar to anybody who's played the French Caribbean Militia and No Peace Beyond the Line, but with, again, some new units. Some units are retired. You don't get freebooters this time in the French Caribbean Militia like you did, I think, in No Peace Beyond the Line.
Yeah, in this part of the timeline, the English and French do not like each other, where they were kind of getting along against the Spanish.
Yeah, this militia is more about protecting French assets than it is hurting the Spanish.
Yeah, but this is pretty similar. Still has that same powerful force rule where you get a free move at some point during each turn, which can be a lot of fun, but just some new units and new commander or two.
So what's the next one, Dan?
The French Raiders. These were originally featured in Fire on the Frontier, and they've been updated for the 18th century. This is my favorite land faction, hands down, and everybody knows I don't play a lot of land personally, but I took these out on a whim, and I absolutely love them. They are a sneaky combination of French sharpshooting and excellent native melee. So you have some good core units with the Braves, the Young Braves, and the arguably one of the better frontier units, the Militia Kennedy.
Close enough. Yeah, we should have said at the outset. None of us are very good at French. I've been trying, but still bad.
Yeah, we are. That it is not my any language for the French Raiders, but I really do like them because they are just so versatile, and they lose slow reload and poorly equipped. So they are a fully equipped force, and they're pretty aggressive with that +2. But their core units are great. Their support units, the Corps de Bois, my favorite model sculpt currently outside the plastic kits. I love the way they look. They're just greasy, grummy looking fur trappers, and the ever popular Nieces and the Compagnie Francis de la Marine. We basically just been calling them maple syrup interplogue. They're really nasty, and they're just, if they're an objective game, you can close on the objective and have a couple units get you covering fire while your natives fly in and do what's best. If you're just focusing on holding a hill, everybody's got muskets and they're all pretty good with them. I think most of the force with their muskets has a 6 shoot, which is kind of crazy.
Very good.
It's an excellent use of the 4-point sharpshooter that guy doesn't like.
Yeah. Giving everybody quick too means that every unit can have a blowout charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is very speedy, very versatile. It takes a little bit to get used to because it's very different from a gunline list, but once utilized, they are awesome. I love the force.
Yeah, they're pretty powerful. They pretty much all have scouts, and then they all have quick, so they're going to speed across the table faster. And that's kind of one of the themes of the French and Blood and Plunder is they're good at moving. The French Caribbean militia has that free move. These guys have quick, where it can be a little more predictable, I guess, but a different style of move.
Nobody expects that late turn spade though. Like you play a spade as your like third card in a turn. Like, where did that come from?
Fun fact, this version of the French Raiders was the first one, but then after Raise the Black was all done and all the production issues were moving like cold molasses, took that design and pushed it back into the 1670s and 90s for Fire on the Frontier. So this is the original version. And then the version that came out first is the spin-off.
So what's the next faction, Joseph?
The French Canadian militia, or the Canadian militia, is again another variation on the land force for the French. It is similar in a lot of ways to it's kind of in between, I guess, the Caribbean militia and the French Raiders. We got some of these same core units. It gets the free move. The coolest thing about the Canadian militia is it has a bunch of fun, unique commanders. If you look at Canadian militia and No Peace Beyond the Line, it has one unique commander who's still here, Pierre Lemoyne d'Iberville. He made it all the way into Raise the Black, but this has another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's kind of hard to estimate how many names are there because the French names have like 72 syllables each. But that's the fun part about this. What I like about this force, you have a bunch of fun, unique commanders. I love unique commanders. They make the force really interesting. You can take it and then work everything around him. But you got the same Canadian militia, the new Compagnie Francis de la Marine, the Braves, Corps de Bois, some artillery units, usual suspects.
Canadians are good in this game. Canadians are very good.
Yeah, that Canadian militia is a great core of a force. What do we got next at sea, Guy?
The next one, though, is the French Privateers. This unique force is mostly a pirate-like action that holds on to some of the older Buccaneers traditions. With the core units of the Marines and later Flibustiers, this faction is at home on land or sea and using cannons or muskets. Also, interestingly, it rewards you for using small arms against rigging letting you score lucky hits on natural 10s, something no other faction does. Kind of like the Canadians, you do have a couple of unique commanders, 4 of them in this one, and more support units than kind of any other faction, French faction. The downside is, though, that you lose a lot of the multinational national ability that the old French Buccaneers have as the French became more insular. You can pick up veteran freebooters. They get to exist in this faction. And you get all the Dutch faction units as support, Zelida and Enterplogue and Capers. The real flair of this one is the later Flibuses, which, as I said before, are 5-point, a skilled musket unit. They only have sailors, but they have that 6-shoot and a brace of pistols along with the Buccaneer gun.
That's pretty cheap for what you get.
Yep.
Yeah, I just played this last week at our weekly game day. Those shooting at rigging, trying to get those natural 10s is fun.
It is. It is. You got one too.
But then you got close with your fire pots. Now I got all flustered and distracted. But
And then my whole ship got depopulated.
as your ally circled the outside of the game board, shooting his 2 light cannons.
Yep.
All right, what do we got last year, Dan?
So the last factory we have here is the French Royal Navy, which again is an evolution of the French Navy of the 17th century. So they get a +3 instead of that 4 to be the attackers. So they're still relatively aggressive. All their units that are trained and veteran get brawlers, which stacks really well with hard chargers. So it makes them really nasty in boarding. But just like the old faction, you are still rewarded for going after your opponent's rigging with your guns. And like all the Spanish got this rule as well, but you can take all your artillery crew and upgrade them for the expert artillery crew for 4 points. It's like giving a master gunner to each unit. It's really crazy. And then you can do the new Navy thing where ship's commander can spend 2 command points to issue a fire and reload to all units assigned to artillery within his command range. It's really good. It's really versatile, surprisingly. We were saying how the French can, do some things, bad at others, but this faction is pretty good at cannons or boarding because most of the French core units have hard chargers and they're very nasty in close quarters, but you can give them expert artillery crew to make your opponent's rigging not exist anymore.
Yeah, this is just it costs more, but you can create a more professional artillery ship, or artillery focused naval ship. Shooting all those cannons at once or reloading them all at once is pretty powerful. You can reload faster. You can, especially if you layer the expert artillery crew with the commander's ability to reload everyone at once. Really good for larger ships. Anything with 3 decks or more with cannons on it, you're really getting value out of this action. Good for big games.
You want to run us through the new commanders you got in the new book, Joseph? Give us a quick rundown.
And then after all the fun new factions or upgraded factions, we have a bunch of new commanders. First, we got the standard commanders, which is a new thing in Raise the Black, where you can kind of create, custom design your own commander for your force. There's a basic untested noob commander who has no special rules. But then once you get to the 10 and 20 point experience and seasoned commanders, you can cherry pick from a list of 9 different rules that the French commanders have available and make a commander that's really custom tailored to your force, which is kind of fun. French has some good rules. Cold-blooded is a good one. Guerrilla commander, expert ambushers, lead by example. They got a total of 9 rules there. So that's a fun new thing you can find in Raise the Black for each nation. There's kind of a list of rules you can pick from to make your own commander. Then we got 8 new historical commanders ranging from 20 to 32 points and pretty powerful guys that can lead various factions. Some really good Buccaneer. I like Captain Daniel. He has the Buccaneer Tactics rule that kind of brings back those rules that we talked about, the later filibusters losing, the fast reload on marksman.
Yeah.
We got some commanders that focus on being good at moving around in cover, local knowledge and quick to help out some of your land factions. Motivated. The French get a motivated commander. It's a fun rule where when you give a command point, you can give 2 actions instead of 1. You can do some wacky things with that. Super costs gets that. René Duguay-Trion is a huge commander for the French Navy, French Army, and French privateers. Lucky is always a fun special rule where you get to get your fortune back if you don't get a better roll. Very inspiring, vast experience.
He's like, if you're going to do a large fleet battle, he's the one that you want in charge too, with that 16-inch range and Commodore.
Yeah.
That's 28 inches away. You can order around your ships.
Then we got one fun, unique character, Father Jean-Baptiste Labat, which is an interesting fighty band. He wrote a account of being in the Caribbean for several years. A real fun read, and this character can basically help out with artillery and rallying people and stuff. Kind of a fun, unique character you can attach to your French Caribbean Militia or Last Buccaneers. Then we got 5 units. We've mentioned some of them. What do you want to just walk through and name them real quick?
Yes. Yeah, well, the one that I've already talked about is the later Flibustiers, which are like the old Flibustiers, only they lose a bunch of their special rules. They have a worse resolve, but they're cheaper. So it balances out. I've used later Flibustiers a lot. I like them. They're like a mix between militia and regular Flibustiers, really. They have that brace of pistol and the Buccaneer gun. They can take explosives now, too, in 1 in 8 models. And make them inexperienced for 4 points. You can even, if you want to lose a game, you can make them inexperienced with only brace of pistols for 3 points.
It's actually pretty great.
Yeah, they're like they're pirates at that point, I think. Except they have a better
yeah
with a 6 shoot and a 6 fight instead of a 7/7, and they can't be on artillery,
French
and they're not trained.
Yep.
Yeah. The next one is probably one of the best French units in here that you will have the most fun with is the Marines Basque. These are people from Basque, which is a great place known for their kind of hardy people. I dated a woman that came from Basque once. These guys are unbelievably good on a ship.
This is that veteran class of sailor that each nation gets. Pretty nasty.
The French one is they come with firelock muskets instead of a brace of pistols, but you can swap them for brace of pistols if you want. They come veteran, but you can reduce them to only 5 points a model for 1 point, by making them trained instead of veteran. And they're very good. They're just good.
Then we got kind of 3 professional soldier units that all have their unique elements. Dan, do you want to go through those real quick?
We have the Compagnie Française de la Marine. These are really like the frontier troops for the French. So they got expertly drilled and scouts. So they are very good at shooting and they ignore terrain. And they come with socket bayonets. And that is kind of the thing here is they can sneak through the terrain really quickly and then stab people. They got a solid fight at a 5, which is amazing for a professional soldier unit. And overall, the good resolve, they feel kind of like the old school $6, 6 point soldiers from No Peace, but they have updated equipment and they're awesome. And then we have the premier French infantry, the Fusiliers. They are the basic line infantry, so they got expertly drilled and hard chargers. They're fantastic, fast reload, and unwavering. So they don't run away, and unwavering may look a bit iffy because it only really activates if you're shaken, but it knocks that shaken down to 2, which means you get to act normal and not waste a turn rallying. It's great.
Yeah.
And these French soldiers, their claim to fame, when you compare them to the other soldiers, is they have 5 fight with hard chargers, which brings it down to a 4. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, with bayonets.
With bayonets.
Ouch.
You have the option to take away bayonets. Don't take away your Fusiliers bayonets. Like you want to save the points, but like if you're going to be in melee at all, like why keep the bayonets on?
They swap them for plug bayonets, so it's just you want them on all the time, or do you want to take the free action to insert
and not shoot again the whole game?
Well, sometimes you gotta turn that musket into a literal spear. And then the cream of the crop here, the French Grenadiers. Same kind of thing. They got the hard chargers, expertly drilled, fast reload, and unwavering, but they have much better stats. That 6 fight save is awesome, especially if you're in cover. If you're in hard cover, that's really good. A resolve of 5, and they get to carry some explosives, which is really great. You want grenados? You got grenados. You want fire pots? You got fire pots. If you want to, if you got a really problem unit of shooty guys, throw in some stink pots and charge with bayonets. They will no longer be an issue.
Yeah, the Grenadier unit's fun.
Expensive, but very much so fun. Highly recommend you bring at least a unit of them in a game. They will never underperform.
They are support in every list, and it's a good thing because you can actually squeeze them down to less than the Fusiliers if you make them trained and take away their muskets and take away their stock of bayonets, or not muskets, their explosives, or do one or the other. You can make them pretty cheap. So that's the French. We got, 6 new factions, 8 new commanders, standard commanders, and 5 new units. We can push the French to new extremes, kind of, although kind of a paradox because some of their units fall off in quality. The piratey kind of units fall off, and their soldiers kind of upgrade, and they get more accustomed to fighting in the rough terrain of North America. That's my general feeling for the progression of this book.
Yeah, they have a lot of unique factions though in this book that they do things that a lot of other factions don't do, especially the French Raiders. I think that's the only land-based faction that gets a bonus on the attacker defender roll.
There's not many. The English Raiders might have something similar, but
Yeah,
not many.
Yeah, I think of it as a literal evolution from the 17th century because the themes are still there, but they just get a little bit better here and there. Those French privateers, they're really nasty.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
yeah.
So if you like playing overpowered French, you need to get a little more overpowered and pick up a copy of Raise the Black.
Here.
You won't regret it.
For more information on the Raise the Black expansion, you can find several articles looking at Raise the Black on our blog, bloodandpigment.com. We have a full article with a brief description of all the factions in the book, along with an article with recommendations on how to use the new plastic minis to create the new units in the book.
Check out the rest of our YouTube channel as well. Subscribe and ring the ship's bell to stay notified of our uploads. We also have a Patreon that you can join.
And as always, keep your dice ready and the wind at your back, your har.